And imagine you can breathe in and out through all the pores of your skin. Feel the breath moving in through the pores and moving out through the pores. And as the breath moves in and out, it softens the container. So you start to feel the outer layers of the body relaxing, becoming more spacious. As if you could actually perceive the body as a collection of atoms, as mostly empty space. And then sending the vibration of Om through this space. Take a deep breath. Space is a good place to start. So, a quick recap of the causes of suffering in yoga philosophy. The first cause is that we don't know who we really are. This is avidya. So through our limited senses of perception, the limitations of the physical eyes, the ears, the mind, we can only actually perceive 1 to 13% of reality of what's going on. That's a very, very small portion. And we make all of these conclusions based on this tiny, tiny, tiny piece that we experience. So yoga philosophy teaches that we suffer because we don't know who we really are. It says who we really are is infinite consciousness. So it's not this vessel that we're perceiving through, but it's the consciousness that is perceiving through this vessel. It's whatever it is that's looking through the eyes, that's listening through the ears. And that consciousness, that energy is eternal, it's unchanging, it can never be harmed. Fire can't burn it, water can't wet it, wind can't dry it. Okay? And it's of the nature of bliss. So the teachings teach that this is what we really are, but because we don't know this, we suffer. And the next cause of suffering is egoism. We don't know that we're really this one consciousness that's here to experience through different bodies, through different senses of perception. So we identify as this separate body, and we think that we are separate from everything, which causes fear to come into play. Then suddenly there's competition. Will there be enough resources? Am I working hard enough to get what I need? Am I worthy of this? Am I deserving? All of these things are from the ego layer. So I'm not going to talk too much more about the causes of suffering. The next ones are attachment and aversion. So everything, we're really living in a sea of change. We can't see it, but right now, your whole body, everything is changing, changing, changing. This is really a collection of atoms. It really is mostly space, spinning around these atoms, specks of light and vibration. This is a sea of change moving, and everything outside of us is a sea of change. So craving and aversion are when we try to hold on. Craving is to hold on and grasp things and try to keep things the same. And aversion is trying to push experiences away instead of allowing the sea of change to move through us. Receiving, releasing, receiving, releasing, receiving, releasing. Knowing that who we are is whole, unconditional love. So Aparigraha is one of the yamas. The yamas, there's in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, it first describes the causes of suffering, these 5 causes of suffering, in chapter 2. And then it describes the remedy to the suffering. And the remedy that text gives is the 8 limbs of yoga. I'll also say there are many paths of yoga. So this isn't the only path. This is one path, but all of the paths lead to the same place. So in these 8 limbs, in this medicine for our suffering, the first step is called yama. And these are ethical practices. This is ways to live in relationship with others. And the one I want to talk about today is Aparigraha. So Aparigraha means non-hoarding, non-grasping. The one that feels it needs to hoard and grasp is the ego, the part of us that feels that it's separate, that feels afraid that it might not have enough. And a practice with Aparigraha is to actually think of this vessel that we're living in as a hollow reed. So instead of this being who we are, instead of the mind being the ultimate wisdom, the mind isn't incredibly wise. It just absorbs thoughts from others and replays them. It absorbs fears and plays them through the system. But if you think of this as a hollow reed that the divine energies are meant to flow through and express through. So it's like as if we're an instrument for the divine to share love, to share whatever it wishes for us to share. Many of you I know have incredible talents and gifts. And these aren't talents and gifts that the ego possesses. These are gifts that the divine said, oh, right, I would like to share love in this way through this being. So, so many of us are already doing that. Okay, I offer to share these talents for love. But Aparigraha is the grasping and the holding instead of allowing things to flow through, receiving, releasing. In Aparigraha, it's the ego's agenda that we're following. So the ego is trying to figure out, how can I be safe right now? What action should I do? How can I capitalize on this? What is the best? All of those thoughts are ego. They're rooted in fear, okay? And there's a step of surrender to actually trusting that the universe has our back and knows exactly how we are meant to show up in each moment and exactly how we can serve in each moment. It's almost like you just fall into the fear and say, okay, instead of trying to problem solve all this, I'm going to allow myself to feel this, and then tune in and say, what would you like me to do? So surrender is a big piece. And then Aparigraha is the letting go. It's not just, there's infinite levels of this. So we can hoard on a physical level, right? Sometimes we have more stuff than we need, more possessions than we need, maybe more toilet paper than we need, right? All of these things to hold us safe. And that's from the idea that we're a separate self. But in reality, our health, our well-being we're interconnected with all of the other beings. So for us to truly be healthy, to truly be well, all the beings need to be truly healthy and truly well. So the practice of Aparigraha is only having what you need. You can start to realize on a physical level that a lot of the possessions we have, there's a cost to them. So first off, there's the cost of buying them, which sometimes we buy external things thinking, oh, I feel unhappy right now. Maybe if I buy this treat or this toy, I'll feel happy. And it makes us happy for a moment. It satisfies the craving for a moment. And then the happiness tends to go away over time. And then it's actually maybe causing more stress. Our visa bill is higher. Now we have to work harder, right? We have to protect things. That takes time. We're worried that someone's going to steal it. So there is a cost to every possession that we have. And I'll just share my own experience about physical. We'll go into mental Aparigraha too, but I first realized this when I was in India, when I was leaving the ashram. I slept under a bug net. There were snakes there. Snakes are my nemesis. And somehow I was incredibly happy in a place where people kept seeing a green snake in front of the dorm, which is a poisonous snake every day. I was like, oh, this is amazing that I don't have much here. I had, one little bag and lived under a bug net. And it was at that point, it was the happiest I had ever been in my life. And I realized, oh, this is incredible. I don't have any things. I don't have stuff right now. And I'm so happy. And then a couple years later, when I was in Africa, I was living in a little plywood shed in Ghana, in a very poor village. I was doing volunteer work there. I thought there would be other volunteers. I was the only volunteer. There was one man that was volunteering as a nurse there, and then me. So I was the only white woman in this village, and I was teaching, and my little hut was disgusting. It was very hot. There was a tin roof, a bat lived above it. Its wing would sometimes come down between the roof and the wall. There was bat poop everywhere, big furry spiders. I had to stuff the perimeter of the ceiling so that these things couldn't get into my space. I didn't practice any physical yoga when I was there. There wasn't a space, it was all just soil outside, and hot, so hot. No comfortable chair to sit in, none of the physical comforts. And again, I was so happy, deeply, deeply, deeply happy, because I realized I actually felt like I was of service there. I was learning so much from these kids that I was teaching, and then I also felt like I was able to offer something to them that was bringing them joy and happiness. And there was this real exchange that felt more fulfilling than anything else I had ever had in my life. So when I left there, I started a non-consumption challenge. I decided to only buy things if I was extremely grateful for them or if I actually needed them. And this made a big shift. So I started to realize before then there'd be, I may be not feeling well. If I get a new outfit, I'll feel better. Or maybe, all of these kind of retail therapy things we do to find external happiness. So letting that go for a while, and then a couple years after that, I came home and I had a place, and then I walked into my home one day and this voice said, get out of your lease and sell all your things. And that was a bit of a shock, but I feel like that was the next step of Aparigraha, was, okay, letting all these things go. And some of them, I didn't know I was so attached, but then as people carried my plants out, I felt tears. I was like, I was attached to those plants, right? Like I got to also experience all the emotional attachments into these things. But then when everything was gone, and the last night I slept in an empty apartment on an air mattress, I felt amazing. I felt so spacious. And then that led to 7 years of studying and practicing yoga, and also learning how the universe was supporting me in very unexpected ways to be able to do that. And then just now I have this home now. I just settled in here 2 weeks before quarantine, which also seems like a lovely gift that now I have a space to be in. So we right now, Aparigraha, I never planned on practicing Aparigraha, and I think right now many of us are starting to practice it without planning, which is likely the best way, or one of the ways that it really connects to us most fully. But soon, things will start shifting back. So I think there's incredible value right now in really taking stock and noticing, what do we really need? What things have we been placing value on that actually don't enrich our lives, that actually cause more stress or cause us to have to work harder to pay these bills or chase them? Like, really, what is it? What possessions do we want to have that, fill us with joy and enable us to share our talents and our love more fully? And what are the things that are holding us back? And a lot of the physical possessions, the ones that are hardest to get rid of, are the nostalgic ones. But often those are the most empowering things to let go of, because energetically, they're holding us in an old place. They're holding us kind of in a younger evolution of our soul. So being able to let go of things that hold us back to a time where we had our needs met in maybe a less fulfilling, less spiritual way, it's beautiful to let those go. Letting go of things that, keep us tied to old relationships that don't serve us anymore, that kind of tug on us and keep us rooted in the past. and prevent us from being right here in the present moment. So this can be difficult work to do, but it's really amazing because what it does, the universe doesn't like a vacuum. It creates this space, and then something new has room to come in. Whatever is new, a bigger way to serve, a bigger way to be, a more fulfilling way to live on this planet. So I invite you to contemplate this, and there's lots of ways you can think about it too. You can also observe I realized when I was observing my consumption that some of my choices really were linked to harming others. A lot of the things that I like to buy, actually on the other side of that, they were harming. So, removing myself from that a little bit was helpful, and let go of some of these energetic ties. I think many of you know this book. This is a great book, Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. I didn't have very many possessions when I got it, and it was still useful because I had nostalgic. What I kept was books and clothes, and I love my books. It was really hard to part with some of my books, but then you realize a part of Aparigraha, non-hoarding, is non-stealing. So someone else can benefit from some of these. So I still do have quite a library, and I read them often, but I was able to give some books away, right? Someone else needs them. Especially right now on the planet, there are people that need, maybe you have more than you need right now. Maybe you already have physical possessions in your home, clothes or things that you can donate to shelters or that you can use to serve. So this book is really helpful. She recommends keeping things that spark joy. The other thing is when you're letting things go, you can offer. So you can take something like, oh, okay, maybe I have an attachment, this meditation shawl, and then hold it up. Okay, Divine, what is your intention with this? And wait for a breath, and it might say, oh, give this to your mother, right? Or give this to someone, or it might say continue to practice with it. You don't know, but using surrender, trying to tune into your heart so that these decisions aren't made by the limited mind, but they can be made from a wisdom that resides deeper inside, that all of us have. This is really what our true nature is, and the path of yoga is learning how to connect to this inner wisdom. So this is a little way to start playing with befriending the divine. Okay, I would like to be your friend. I would like to work in partnership with you. Let's clean this house together. Let's go through this together. What can we let go of? And when I got rid of all of my possessions, some things I gave away and some things I sold. And remember too that whatever the divine has planned, the next way that it wishes you to serve, it might need you to have some money to be able to serve that way. It might need you to be able to buy some food or to, build something for it. So there's a balance in there, and you can tune in. Okay, is this something that I'm to give away? Is this something that I'm to sell? If it's something that you're to sell, set the intention. Okay, I'm setting the intention that perfect person who can benefit from this, who's looking for this, will find this, right? And that it'll benefit both parties, that it's easy for them. They have the resources to buy this with ease. So it will be a blessing for them to have this object. It will be a blessing for you to release this object and be able to build something to serve in a different way. So always setting the intention, never just from your own perspective, okay, help me, bless me, move me on my path, but all of the characters involved. Let this movement bless everyone. Let everyone benefit from it. So that goes back to the words. I shared a short teaching on the words I, me, and mine. And if we really want to expand our practice, working on softening our usage of these words. So all of the possessions we have, none of them are really ours. They're all God's or the divine's, right? They're ours on loan for a while. We use them to learn what we need to learn, and then when our learning is done with something, then it's time to pass it on to someone else. We're passing the torch. Here, you can use this and learn this, and I hope it helps you, and then that opens you up to receive what is best for your next learning, the next part of your journey. So this gripping of the things slows down our process, and just realizing that we're meant to be a hollow reed for the divine to flow through, to play through, to express through. And our breath teaches us this all the time: receiving, releasing, receiving and releasing. You can do that meditation all the time. Receive, release, receive, release. I didn't get into mental attachments, but I'll quickly talk about those too. So it's not just physical attachments. We also tend to attach and hoard old belief systems, right? There's lots of mental grasping, things that we hold in our body. And for these, forgiveness is often really important. So I shared a post with 2 forgiveness books. I recommend both of them. One of them is Unconditional Forgiveness with Mary Hayes Greco, and I went and did some work with her. I really recommend her work. I've noticed in this time too, in this stillness, that I've had lots of different emotions come up, and a few times I've had to tune into that book, like, oh, walking, a face came through many, many times. I'm like, oh, you need to work on forgiveness again. The next layer of that is there. So that book has been really helpful to have some forgiveness ceremonies to let things go. And radical forgiveness too. And both of these books are completely in line with yoga philosophy. So really learning, it's the ego that's grasping, it's the ego that's holding on, but the higher self really just wants to do this. It wants to trust and be like, okay, we're here to learn, knowing that the curriculum, what we're here to learn is love. So we don't need to be so afraid of it. We're not here to be punished or tortured. We're here to completely evolve our hearts so that we really understand what love is. Not just for giving, but for receiving. And some of the mental attachments we can hold on to are being not deserving, unworthy, being bad, feeling guilty that we have too much. These are all mental attachments. This is grasping to an idea that is very, very far from love. So there's value in the practice of dealing with these mental attachments too, because when we deal with them in ourselves, then we can actually love others more fully. I was talking to someone the other day about anger arising in the body. And a lot of time when anger arises in the body, we just want to run away. I don't want to feel that. Okay, what can I do to not feel this? Aversion, right? Okay, maybe I'll go dance, I'll do something else, I'll just try to get it out. But it has a message often. So actually having the courage to sit with it and breathe into it and allow yourself to feel it. And sometimes the anger is because of something we're telling ourselves. It's never the things outside of us. The external stimulus, they can trigger something, but it's just showing us what are we thinking or believing about something. So it shows us, helps us to tune into thoughts that we have that we need to let go of. And then it also helps to deepen compassion when we really allow ourselves to feel the uncomfortable emotions that are arising in here. Then when someone else comes up and they're really angry, we can have the wisdom to know, oh, they're thinking something right now that is making them feel not good, right? And it feels bad in their body and they're desperately trying to get it out of their body, and I'm here, so they're trying to put it into my body. So not, what that tends to bring up is our anger, and then we push back and forth, and hate only brings more hate. So the best way we can show up in these situations, if we're courageous enough to feel our own emotions, be present with them, we can develop compassion for them. Then when we see it arise in someone else, we can have compassion that it's arising in them, and we can stay grounded. And imagine that energy is kind of moving through our roots down into the earth, so as if we could ground it for them, not taking or holding any of it in our body. So I just want to close with 2 practical exercises that you can do for these. Many of us have time right now to let go of physical possessions, so allow this to be a joyful process. Really offer it, tune in, imagine that you can hear God all the time, and if you pretend, then you will start to hear that guidance. It will drop in. And do some time to reflect. I recommend doing some journaling, like writing, what do you really need to have? What really brings you joy? What helps you to live from love more fully? What things, when we can start to consume again, what things were you consuming that you don't need, that are actually fueling this cycle of stress and scarcity? So a quick exercise I'll share. A lot of our grasping tends to be down here in the second chakra, the sacral chakra. This is where we take on the emotions of others. This is where we hold a lot of our fears. So you can make a fist and hold it just about a fist length below your navel. Squeeze your fist and imagine that that is inside your fist is everything that you're holding on to, everything that you're grasping. All the fears, everything you think that it's not safe to let go of. Physical, mental, the emotional. Really feel like you can pull all of it into your fist. Good, and then bring your fist up to the height of your heart. Turn your palm up and slowly open your fingers like a flower blooming, offering all of this to the divine. Offering all the attachments, knowing that you'll be guided. That you'll receive all the information you need to receive, that we receive everything that we need in the perfect timing. And you can imagine the flower of your heart chakra, it can be huger than your body. It's a big, big blossom. It can't be too big. This is where you see from compassion, where you can hold others in compassion from the heart level, but you don't take any of their stuff in. We take stuff in down in a lower chakra. This one we can just see through compassion.